Hi, everybody. I'm Matt Crow, and like Coach Raymond said, I'm in the history department, and I'm also the NCAA faculty athletic representative, in addition to being the faculty athletic fellow for rowing. I think it's interesting because the way we talk about athletics and academics is usually they're kind of in tension, or you're going to school for one but not the other. And a big part of my job is to argue accurately that that's not true. It's just flat on its face not true. Student athletes at HWS have a higher GPA. They participate more in other activities besides athletics than the average student. Um, and that means that they're super engaged. They're just engaged. And I think a big part of that has to do with the accountability on the team, the fact that you're part of a community. You step foot on a college campus, and college can be kind of alienating. You're with a whole bunch of new people. In a new team, new coach, new dynamic, maybe new part of the country, new part of the world. Um, and the fact that you have a team around you really makes a big difference. It sends you into the classroom with a level of confidence, with a level of accountability, a level of kind of a feeling of responsibility to your classmates and to your faculty that I think is unique. I'm just amazingly proud of the student athletes we have. And it makes a big difference. Just advising today, I was advising students from a colleague's first year seminar who's on leave, who's on medical leave. And so her students are coming to me for advising. And all the student athletes come in and go, I know what I want to take next semester. These are the professors I want to talk to. This is what I want to major in. I talked to my coach about this. I talked to my teammates about this. And you kind of go, okay, there's not a whole lot for us to talk about then. And that makes meetings quick and efficient. And so we ended up talking a little bit about how they're balancing academics and athletics, but by and large, they were prepped, right? They came in knowing what they wanted to do and knowing how to get it. And that's not because they just naturally figured it out. It's because the team provided them with that kind of framework. So athletics and academics support each other here in a way that's really quite unique. And I went to graduate school to a place that has a big sports program, and that wasn't always the case. And so to have this environment where athletics and academics kind of reinforce each other, where your coaches are at your game, where your colleagues, your faculty are at your games, and your coaches are asking you about where you are in your studies and that kind of stuff is really a unique environment.
Excellent, Professor Crow. Thank you. Coach Risky, we'll move right on to you. How would you define leadership in your program specifically, and how do you help student athletes develop it, become better leaders?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I think every team needs empowered and selfless leaders, as well as motivated and selfless first followers, and who are all aligned and really flying in the same direction together. And our model of leadership within the field hockey team, we don't expect one or two captains to do all of the things for everyone. And I think a lot of members on our team have a lot of experience and talents and skill sets to fit different kind of positions, so to speak, or committee work. And so we have a couple of different committees. This year we had 11 leaders on our team, consisting of a holistic community engagement type committee, committee that had consisted of social organizers, the student athlete advisory committee rep, student athlete athletic study mentor rep, and then your on-field leaders. And so from our standpoint, that model kind of serves different student athletes' strengths and provides opportunities for many different students to lead. And that philosophy of many hands make light work, in which I think it serves our team really well. And how we develop them is really, well, first of all, expecting all of our leaders to embrace that team first mentality and live our standards and our values to the highest level, and then really support and uplift others as their job, as well as living out their different committee work. But we really identify their strengths, and the teams kind of we have a team meeting that discusses like, what do we need out of our leaders? What do we want our leaders to do? And there's a lot of different things you can, we come up with a whole board full of them, and that's a lot for just a couple people to manage. So that's why we have those, several different committees to work with. But in preseason, we really get into depth into who they want to be as leaders and define their own leadership mission statement and a real values-based approach. And so we use our time during preseason together discussing this and discussing them individually, what their strengths are, where they need to grow each individually as well, and how they can lean on each other. So one player might be really great at having difficult conversations, and another really needs to work on that. And so they can kind of team up and support each other in their pursuit. But we also have conversations together in the leadership group of like, what are the challenges that we might face in a season, and list them all out. And they can be things that we've experienced in the past, or something that's even something that might be a little bit out in left field but could happen, right? And we list all those things out, and then we talk about each of them and how we're going to handle them to just be a little bit more proactive. What action steps we would have an action plan, and what action steps that we would take to handle them, and then prevention steps, like, well, instead of maybe then having to deal with them, how could we even prevent them? And so these conversations, I think, are really valuable in developing our leaders to kind of practice and think ahead versus being in the moment when you really have to act in in kind of heat of the moment. But they've thought through how they could handle different situations. But I think kind of going back to the first piece of that is important, to be first and foremost a really selfless leader, and empowered to really use your voice and really care about putting the team first within our program. So that's a little bit how we approach leadership.
Great, Coach Risky. Thank you so much. Maxie, let's bump to a student athlete here. What does being a leader on your team mean to you? And how has that definition maybe changed a little bit since you've been at HWS?
Yeah, I think for me, everyone on our team is considered a leader, and that's something that we've been talking about a lot recently. Professor Crow kind of touched on it, but just being accountable, that means someone else is relying on you. So you have to show up and execute. And I think over the years, that can look like a lot of different things, especially during your first couple of years. You might not be a vocal leader, but you might be on the scout team leading your fellow teammates, something like that, off the field in the classroom, just being a leader, communicating well within your class. And then more recently for me, being on like our leadership council, having more vocal position to the team. I think it's super important to be able to do it all, and making sure that everyone knows their values is a really important thing. So just being able to adapt and be flexible and kind of change your mindset throughout the years is super important. I think that's a really big thing that we stress.
That's great. That's great. Back to the coaches, Coach Thompson. Talk about how you help your athletes handle adversity, and maybe some ways you prepare them for leadership beyond sport.
Thank you. And just as a heads up, there's a women's practice going on. So if you hear a horn in the background, I apologize about that. But when it comes to adversity, I think you're signed up for that as a student athlete, especially in a high competitive environment academically here at HWS, as well as on your field, on your court, in the water. Some adversity is going to come your way. It could be social adversity, academic, could be physical, could be dealing with an injury. So what we try to make sure our guys are understanding of is that it's going to come. So how do you want to be able to handle that when it comes your way? And I start the conversation by talking to them that they've already gotten through so much adversity to get to this point here at HWS. I try to have them tell me a story of something they had to get through when they were 5 years old, when then adversity struck, maybe at 15. And I get them to the point where they understand when you're 50 years old, there's going to be adversity still coming your way. So it's a matter of being able to recognize that, and then knowing yourself well enough to have the proper mechanisms in place to respond to that adversity. We really try to help our athletes have a great response rate And what we say is that when something negative happens, how long does it take for you to get back to a positive place? Is it a minute? Is it a day? Is it a week? And we want you as a athlete to be able to help your response rate be as quick as possible. Because as you get older in life, whether it's a freshman to a senior in college, you're only going to have more responsibilities. So as those adversities come your way, you want to know that you're prepared to be able to handle those. And the beauty of it, though, is as an individual, if you continue to grow to handle adversity, you can handle that on the court, on the field, in the water, even better when you have a championship game or a high stakes environment that you're participating in.
Great, Coach Thompson. Great job. Thank you. Delaney, back to our student athletes. Delaney, talk a bit about some of your team's values and maybe how they're reflected in the broader culture of HWS athletics.
Yeah, absolutely. A few things come to mind. First of all, as a Division III lacrosse player, I think we really value, the student as much as the athlete. And in that, like, as a leader, I'm gonna push my teammates to do the best they can in practice, at lift, like, when we're working on lacrosse things outside of all of those things. But at the same time, I'm there to support them in academics, in their social life, in, if they have an on-campus job, like, as teammates, we're all there to support every aspect of life here at HWS, and that, is translated directly into the athletic department. Our coaches are there just as much as we are for our teammates, and whether it's our academic advisors or, your coach just being there to support you if you're having issues with anything, they are caring as much about you as a person as they are about you as a player. So that's something that I absolutely love about this program. And also, Professor Crow kind of mentioned earlier the connections that you're going to make. We always bring up in our team meetings that, you're not just teammates, like, you are going to be teammates for life and also best friends for life. So the people that you meet at HWS are absolutely going to be there after you graduate. And the thing about having a small campus as well is that a lot of this campus is student athletes, and, we show up for each other's games. I work in athletic communications, so I take stats for a lot of the games. So I'm not just here for the lacrosse team. I'm friends and teammates I consider with the other athletic teams on campus, and you kind of feel that connection. I think that's really special about HWS.
Delaney, great job. Thank you. We've got time for a couple more here, and we'll circle the wagons again. So, Professor Crow, we'll come back to you and talk a little bit about your role as liaison and how you see athletics as a part of the broader HWS community, and how does it contribute to the college's overall culture of excellence? And talk a little bit about that angle and how we prepare the students to lead lives of consequence.
Sure. So just for a little bit about my role, so I've kind of two roles here. One of them is I'm the faculty athletic fellow for the rowing teams, men and women, and that's super exciting. I go to the head of the Charles with the team. I go to a lot of the races in the spring. I help take down the data for erg tests and that kind of stuff. Rowing team does these the tests on the ergometer, right? That are pretty brutal, but they do them as a team, and it's just an amazing thing to see. And so that's a really incredible thing that I get to do. I feel honored and lucky to get to participate in that kind of thing. But I'm also the faculty athletic representative, which is an NCAA mandated position, that there be someone that the college appoints to be an advocate for student athletes. And I'm appointed so that I don't have to run for anything. So it's my job to kind of make myself unpleasant if I need to be, on behalf of student athletes, not on behalf of athletics, on behalf of student athletes. Um, and that's I have a lot of fun doing that. Um, and so, to me, the reason I feel so strongly about student athletes is because I know them. I know the three guys who graduated a couple years ago, from the rowing team, who are going to row across the Atlantic this summer, or I'm sorry, not this summer, this winter. Um, and the camaraderie they have, the deep, almost kind of religious commitment they have to each other, and I get to see that, and I get to talk to them about it. I have a member of our three-time national championship defending hockey team who's an advisee and an honors student. Comes into my office all the time, and one of the biggest things we work on is his frustration that the rest of the world doesn't work like a 3-time national championship winning hockey team. And you kind of just have to go, yeah, that committee doesn't work like that, or no, the mayor's office doesn't work like that. Because he's been sort of, we all get kind of cooked in a soup, and the soup he's been cooked in is a soup of just excellence, and responsibility and mutual aid. It's not all just kind of be a tough guy stuff. It's when I'm in trouble, I know who to talk to. I can reach out, or when I'm struggling, there's a community around me. And that really matters. It really matters for your individual development. I promise you, from what I've seen people do as they go through this institution, and afterward, that it just forms you as a better, not a more worthwhile person, but a better person, someone who's reliable, and someone who shows up and is ready to lead, someone who's uncomfortable with uncertainty, someone who's comfortable with uncertainty, who's comfortable with unpredictability. Um, and I think those are attributes that are really in demand and that are becoming more rare, in the world that we live in. And to see a group of young people just go, oh, no, no, we have that. I can look a situation in the face where I don't know how it's going to work out for me and walk into it anyway. It's a big deal to see that. And you see it in the classroom, um, but you see it outside the classroom too. You see it in the way people interact on campus, the way that student athletes will show up to social justice conversations or to broader civic communal conversations, the way they show up for each other, like Delaney said. It's amazing to watch the Liberty League championship for Hobart hockey this past weekend. And it felt like the entire athletics program was there cheering for them in the freezing rain. They were just out there cheering for them, and it was just an amazing thing to see. So I think athletics helps create a sense of community, that wouldn't be here without it. I mean, you'd still have the college, and it would be nice, and there'd be a pretty campus, and there'd be great classes and nice books to read. But athletics creates the sense of community on campus in a very big way. And if you decide to come here, you'll be a part of that. You'll be a part of crafting that, and you'll be acknowledged, as being a part of crafting that.
Excellent, Professor Crow. Excellent. Lindsay, I'm going to defer to you here. Do we have time for a couple more? Should we move over to the question and answer from all those participating here, or stick with the panel?
I think let's do some question. Let's just see if we have some questions, I guess. And if not, we can maybe bounce back to it. But just for the sake of time, maybe let's just see. And if you guys, it might be hard for me to see all your hands. It might be the easiest if you just put them in the chat and I can kind of read them for you and facilitate that. And no pressure. We can keep chatting if you don't have questions. But if you do have questions, throw them in the chat now and I'll.
Well, while we wait for him, let's go, Coach Risky. Can we go back to you and talk a little bit about maybe specific, just from a coaching or a coach the player, coach the teammate standpoint, maybe an example of a moment when a student athlete stepped into a leadership role that could have maybe surprised you, or the environment that Coach Crow just spoke about so eloquently. Once they're in it, you see this version or this leadership emerge. Can you speak about maybe an example or two that could have happened with?
Yeah, it kind of also connects to Coach Thompson's adversity. Something that really I was inspired by a student athlete a couple of years ago who early on in the season, we had 2 goalkeepers on the team, and one of the goalkeepers got a season-ending injury maybe 3 weeks into the season. They were both there. She's a junior, and we were left with only one healthy goalkeeper. And in that kind of situation, a lot of times athlete could turn into and feel sorry for themselves, and, oh, I lose my season. And it becomes a little bit about me, and they don't get to have that season. And she just totally poured herself into our other goalkeeper, and really just became kind of that selfless leader, and supported the team in any way that she could. She became a little bit more like a student assistant coach while she wasn't, but she just, I think, was really inspiring to her teammates and how she handled the adversity and how she just stepped up and led and supported that other goalkeeper, supported our entire team, and made it about everybody else and not kind of deflecting upon her own loss in that. And so just handling that, I think, was really special. She was a student who actually wasn't mentioned tonight, but HWS has a really cool lead certificate program, a leadership program, and she was a member of that and part of that program, and just somebody who's since graduated and now is in coaching herself. And I think that just is a real a testament to the kind of person that she was and the leadership qualities that she had, that she really could take that and make a positive out of something that was really a disappointing experience for her to lose an entire season. So that's something that was inspiring to me.
Yeah, that's great, Coach. I think if everybody's listening well and paying attention, you see how tied in the push for community and the cultivation of relationship, what that does for your actual experience as a HWS athlete, and how that it transitions what you maybe thought this experience was going to be into what you actually want to make it, which is, finding that place in yourself that exudes great selflessness and does more for your teammates than maybe more so the individuals. So and continuing on that path, Delaney, let's go back to you and talk a little bit about a specific of maybe where your coaches and your teammates forced you to be the best version of yourself, and maybe how you handled that and how that helped you through the phase that you were going in.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just like to mention that I came in as I had surgery my senior year of high school. So I came in to HWS 6 months after ACL surgery. So I really had honestly no role on my team. So it was kind of up to my coaches and teammates to make me feel like I had value. And it really made a whole world of a difference, because your freshman year can be really difficult. So coming onto a team and having that support, even though I wasn't going to be on the field, I wasn't going to be a vocal leader, that really pushed me to kind of like build my mental game a little bit. And then obviously once I came back, in the past few years, especially as I'm, interviewing for jobs and trying to find out what I'm going to do post grad, it's become clear to me that the skills that I've built on the lacrosse field are absolutely going to help me in interviews and trying to, grow my professional, experience after this. Because I've even talked to family, friends, and different people, like people who are hiring me, saying, we do look for student athletes because we know that you can work collaboratively and you can be uncomfortable in the uncomfortable in the uncomfortable, like Professor Crow said. Just those intangible things are going to be so important to your professional development, and that's something that I've really valued in my time at William Smith Lacrosse.
Thank you. And Lindsay, it sounds like we got a few good questions that we want to ask here.
Yeah, and I think maybe they're good for Matt and then our student athletes a little bit, but they're like the first few questions are all about kind of selecting classes, registering, especially when you're in season for classes, and what kind of support, academic support there is also for student athletes. And I think the first three were kind of around those things. So
For sure. Real quickly, so there's different kind of layers of support, and different kind of contact points. One of them is within the team. Um, each team has study mentors and teams that are kind of academic, or athletes that are kind of academic liaisons that will help, especially first year students, kind of walk through the registration process. And I work with the rowing teams student mentors to help them advise how to get first year students, familiar with the registration process. There's also the coaches themselves. The coaches themselves are really very involved in students' lives, and it's not just athletically; it's academically too. I can tell you, the rowing coaches are training people. They are not just training rowers. And there's also the program that I help direct, which is the Faculty Athletic Fellow program. So just about every team, we're working on every team, but just about every team has a Faculty Athletic Fellow, which is a professor whose job it is to be an academic liaison to the team. And sometimes that's just about support, but really it's about being another kind of advisor. It's about helping them walk through their schedules, talking to them about conflicts, that kind of thing. There's also the student's regular academic advisor who will be their FSEM professor their first year, and you have to talk with your advisor to register for classes. So you have to go have a conversation face to face with your professor to walk through what you want to do next semester and why you want to do it. So there's a lot of contact points in terms of registration for classes. In terms of the kind of scheduling stuff, by part of policy, classes and practice do not conflict. There are kind of practice sessions. So like sometimes the rowing team will have earlier practices for part of the team, especially once the weather changes, which it's just about to the point where you don't want to be rowing outside anymore. They'll go to a kind of, hey, if it's better for you to show up at 2 or 3, show up at the boathouse 2 or 3, someone will be there. This is the workout. If it's better for you to show up at 4:30, this is the workout. But you will not have practice conflicting directly with your schedule. And if when there are misunderstandings, or a professor, kind of schedules a test after class time or something like that, it's my job to email them and say, I'm going to do it more politely than that, but, to kind of ameliorate those things. And so when you run into some of those kind of conflicts or misunderstandings, there's someone there to help you address it. You're not just there kind of at the mercy of whatever a faculty member thinks or whatever your coach thinks. There's someone there to help address it. And in my job, I've had to, kind of give the finger in the chest talking to faculty and say, hey, wait a second, this isn't fair. We need to rethink this. And I've had to do it with coaches, and I do both happily. So you have a lot of advocacy points in terms of meeting some of the challenges that come with being a student athlete.
Like Professor Crow just indicated, we're going to jump to Max real quick to help fill in there. Max is a part of our athletic study mentor program and has been for the past 2 years. Max, you talk a little bit about, Professor Crow indicated one of those first or maybe most powerful indications of how to pick classes, where to pick them, when to pick them, is that peer accountability and that peer leadership. So talk a little bit about that program briefly as we're creeping up on the end of time here, and then talk about your role in the athletic study mentor program.
Yes, it's been a great experience working with our first years the past 2 years. And I remember my first year was such a big help. So I really wanted to be involved. And basically, throughout the fall, we do group meetings where we break down good study habits, ways to get your reading done, studying for exams. And then we also get into individual meetings. And this is a chance to really get to know the students on a deeper level, understand what classes they're taking, what their schedule looks like. Some people have tougher schedules than others, so they might have to put a little bit of extra work in. So it's really great to just kind of gauge that. And I always talk with the coaches about it just to make sure they're on the same page as well. And then as we move towards registration, which is kind of right now, we're also going to make sure that they have a good kind of set class list that they're looking at. A lot of them don't necessarily know what they want to do down the line for their major or minor, and that's okay. We also have other classes and goals that you can pursue in the meantime as well. So it's really just our job to make sure they have a good kind of list and they're taking these classes for a reason, and just want to make sure that they're kind of on the right path. So we'll sit down individually with that. And we gave extended time this year. And they're also all doing it at the same time, I believe, in December, which makes it a lot easier for them as well. So they'll be picking them in their first year seminar class, which is really nice. So they'll be with all of their classmates, with their FSEM advisor. So there's a ton of support for that.
And can I just real quick, because I think we just have, maybe just we'll go with these two last, or can we stay on for a couple more minutes for these two last questions? Is everybody good with that? I just there was one question a couple questions on playing two sports, and also just time for other clubs. Are there time for other, like if you're a student athlete? So I don't know if our student athletes, if you guys can talk a little bit about either of those, if not the two sports, if maybe the just clubs that you might, or other organizations or things that you do outside of those two, just to kind of share some examples.
Yeah, super quickly, Delaney can go right after, but I work in admissions as well, so I spend a lot of time there. And I've also been a member of the Finance Society. I've done career treks with them. I'm a member of the investment club, so we meet on Tuesday nights. But there's plenty of time to get involved, whether that's throughout the day or in the evening as well. Practice isn't going to run super late, so you might have to commit extra time to it, but it is there for you. And like everyone's been saying, there's such a big kind of student athlete base on campus. Everyone else is playing sports as well. So everyone's doing the same thing and on the same kind of schedule. So I haven't found any difficulty in getting involved with any extracurriculars.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just quickly, I also have a job on campus. It involves me going to a lot of other athletic teams' games and being there for the entire time. And I have obviously more time in my off season, and that's the big time for me to really be involved. But even in the off season, especially with things academically like tutoring hours, I have time for those in the evenings because things still run from like 7 to 10 even after my practices happen. So it's definitely while it is, time consuming to be a student athlete, there's time in the day to do other things as well.
And then maybe last one, just while I've got you two, the student athletes, if you could just share, we had one question about what maybe your biggest adjustment for a first year student athlete might be, or like if you thought of one, I thought that was a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, the biggest was the amount of free time. Even though you are an athlete, you go to class, but you still have a lot of time throughout the day. You're not going to be having that full high school schedule laid out for you. You're there from 7 to 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. Your classes can vary throughout the day, so you have a lot of free time to yourself. Your professors aren't necessarily checking in on you with daily homework. They might have essays or exams in the future. So a big thing is time management, organization, and just being accountable and just being organized was definitely the biggest thing for me.
The first thing that came to my mind was it was the first time that one I had ever lived away from home and two lived with another person and she also happened to be on my team. So that was definitely an adjustment, but it ended up being a great one because I loved everyone that lived not only on my floor, but my roommate became my best friend and teammate. So that was a good adjustment.
Thanks, everyone. And I know, I think hopefully everyone can see in the chat box, but I know Greg and Professor Crow both put their contact information. And I would also encourage you to reach out to coaches if you're talking with coaches and things like that to ask if there's sports specific questions. I don't know, Greg, is there anything else or coaches you want to wrap up?
I think we're in great shape, and this was efficient. Max and Delaney, you did a wonderful job. Professor Crow, thank you. Coach Thompson, thank you. Coach Risky, thank you. Just again, in closing, just keep in mind, how persistent we are on all things academic and athletics here. I think the well-rounded student athlete is something that we are very much in favor of and very much connected to teaching. So please reach out with questions. Lindsay, thank you for keeping us on track here, and all the coaches and all the student athletes, and Professor Crow, thank you for your time.
All right. I hope to see all your applications soon and on campus. Take care.
Take care.